Hello, it's Nikki and welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad so many of you are loving the interviews and thank you so much for sharing, rating and reviewing. I so appreciate it. Anyway, I wanted to continue the conversation of success. So often we hear the extremes, don't we, of rags to riches, homeless to billionaire, sleeping on a random sofa to a blinged up palace. But what about the in-between bits? I know personally I have had many. How do you get from A to Z? But also, how do you get from A to B or F to M? In these mini episodes, I want to provide questions to ponder, ideas that might spark a brainstorm, or raise topics that might be a little bit uncomfortable in the moment, but they will support you to go to the next level of your business. As always, please come over to social media at Nicky Raby and I'd love to hear your thoughts and breakthroughs. Hello, okay, today I'm talking about content. This may fill you with absolute dread or confusion or overwhelm of like, what do I have to create? Please don't make me create anything else. But I wanted to talk about it because it's been such an intrinsic part of my business and its growth. And also, just to flag up at this stage, I am not a content creator. There have been times when I've worked with brands, but it's been very few and far between. For the most part, the content that I create is a business strategy. It's something that I want to talk about. It's a way of building a community or welcome people into my world or to spark a conversation. And it's been really interesting to see over the years how it's developed and how it is ever evolving depending on where I'm up to in my life. So I started playing around with blogging in about 2011, 2012, when I started to transition into this real movement of becoming an entrepreneur. And I was reading a lot of blogs at that point. Facebook was on the cards, but Instagram wasn't really about, or certainly I wasn't on Instagram. And I was starting to consume lots of information on the internet, on my computer, maybe not even on my phone at that stage, but certainly on my Dell, this kind of rickety old computer that I had, and rather than being in magazines or print media, as it were. So when I first started, I was very much in this transition of thinking about what it would be like to go live, to actually share my thoughts online. Now, I've always loved creative writing. I was good at English at school. My spelling is sometimes a bit left of the middle, let's say. But on the whole, I find the whole process of writing and collecting and sharing my thoughts quite easy. And I want to document a little bit about my own content journey and talk about it with the analogy of albums. So very much in 2012, I was in that first album. Some of the things that I was writing about and creating, they really stuck. They become big hitters. Sometimes people still quote these blogs that I wrote. There is one blog actually that is still, if I look at my analytics on my website, still one of the most popular pieces that I ever wrote. And I just kind of not dashed it out, but it was certainly something that just happened to be on my mind at the time. And it became a bit of a hit, and it's something that attracts a lot of traffic to my website. So at that time, I did have a couple of big hitters, but the rest was sort of filler. It was a bit generic. It was a bit what everybody else was talking about. It was those kind of things like how to start your morning, make sure you have a shower, or make sure you have a hearty breakfast. It wasn't very controversial. It wasn't very thought-provoking. But it was a really important stage of me learning that process of having an idea and actually writing and publishing and getting something out there, regardless whether or not it was going to be part of the masterpiece or my legacy. But I think certainly it's really important to share that you only get to a point of really creating content consistently and content that you're proud of by doing it regularly, by trying things out, by working that muscle. It's kind of like becoming a better dancer, with another kind of weird creative analogy. You only get to know the different styles by doing them. And that's why those professionals on Strictly Come Dancing, they bring so many different styles and elements and things to the table, but then they know how to compartmentalize them as and when they need them. So 5 years ago, it was very much like, let's get the wheels in motion. 4 years ago, it was very much a try hard. Maybe it was the difficult second album. I was basically trying all the genres. I was trying to be all things to all people, which in a way I kind of still stand by, because this podcast does offer lots of different things. And I think this is important to say about the podcast as well. When I first started out, everybody was telling me that I needed to pick a niche and do that consistently week on week. But even if I was really into Facebook advertising, I would not want to create that content week and week. And I think what I always need to come back to is that sense of creating content that I'm really excited about, that I can't wait to share. And I really feel like this, especially about the interviews as well, that sense of, ooh, today is your day, and that's when I'm going to share the episode, and that's really exciting. But one thing that I found 4 years ago was that I was trying so hard. So I was trying to share recipes. I was trying to share cafes that I'd been to. I was trying to share business strategies, acting stuff. I had 2 blogs, 2 Instagrams, it was just overwhelming. It was really hard to keep up. And even though I tried to do some weird color coordination, it just was never going to be the best way to work or share things. And certainly as well, this is another thing that I think it's really important to share. By sharing all of that free content, I wasn't getting paid to create that content and then share it. And also that content wasn't converting. Yes, people might go, oh, she made some halloumi burgers the other night. But was that turning into a business lead? Was that helping people come and comment on my Instagram or whatever? No, it wasn't, because it was just a bit scattered. And I'm sure people were thinking, what is she going to come out with now? Okay, moving into 3 years ago, I'm going to call this like the dark, moody years. So I just had a baby. I was in survival mode. My body was healing. I was becoming a new mum. I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I did sometimes, obviously. Like, I can look back now and go, oh, okay, I did trust my instinct on that, and that. But I was sort of figuring out how to get back on the horse, and I was really confused about what to write about. There are some really seriously emotional pieces from that time that bizarrely I feel a bit weird about sharing now, because they're to do with my family and they're quite exposing and personal. However, they did lead to other opportunities and they connected with people, and I have kept them up because I feel like that was still very much a part of me and where I was up to in those years. But one thing that I found was I didn't really know what I wanted to talk about. I was feeling quite confused about my business, and also I had a focus that I just needed to get money through the door. I was self-employed, and I didn't really have a backup plan of how I was going to navigate this motherhood, self-employed dance, which sometimes becomes a bit of a weird mosh pit at times. So definitely at those times, I was sort of just doing a lot of free stuff. I was being interviewed on other people's blogs, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to say. And I guess that's another important point, is it's okay sometimes. It's okay to have those times where you need to take a step back from your blog or whatever it is that you're doing and assess and have a look round and think, okay, this is working, this is not, I need to be quiet on this, I need to take some time out here, I need to unsubscribe from this, and this, and take some time to be in that moment. Okay, 2 years ago, I found my rhythm again. So I really got a sense of figuring out strategically what I wanted to write about. I knew my strengths by that point. I thought about where I wanted my business to go and how I could create those steps to get there through content and things that I wanted to share. I really felt like I found my mojo a bit. A few bits were still a little bit confused. There was still a lot of stuff that I needed just to change. I actually did a bit of a declutter on my website, so I deleted loads of content, which was a really confusing time because I knew that I needed to. I knew that I needed to have a cull and feel fresh and excited about things. But also I had that sense of, but I've put so much work into it. So definitely there was a strategic point there, but also a mindset shift of, no, this doesn't represent me now. This is not what I want people to read about me. It's almost like those things where you go back and you look at your teenage wardrobe and there are some bits that you absolutely love. Like I had an Adidas jacket with 3 stripes down each arm and I really loved it. Whether I would wear it now, I probably would actually, but there are certain things, buffalo trainers, there's another one. So I really loved them at the time, but whether I could incorporate them now, it maybe just wouldn't be appropriate. So 2 years ago, it was very much about weeding, seeing what was going on, pulling old weeds out, planting new seeds, and really being considerate and conscious about what I was building. And then over the last year, my goodness, this podcast has gone from strength to strength. And it was something that I knew that I wanted to create. It was one of my goals when I did my planning about a year ago. But I've been really thrilled with how it's grown, not just in terms of stats and people sharing, and that's like ego boost when people say that they love what you do, but what it's standing for and what it's doing and what it's helping. And do you know what? I get so many messages every single week, really vulnerable, lovely messages from people. I'm not saying that messages are lovely and vulnerable, but you know what I mean? But just really warming messages of, this has really helped me through my postnatal depression, or I wasn't sure where I was going with my business because nobody in my family gets what I'm doing, but somehow I feel like I can do this. And I think there's something about me being in your ears or other podcasts being in your ears that it's a really intimate experience. And I just wanted to thank you at this stage, actually, just for following this every step of the way and supporting and sharing. I really appreciate it. So I've touched on the podcast. Also, I want to touch on videos and Instagram. I really feel like my Instagram has grown over the last few years. I'm being much bolder in what I can say. I'm pushing more boundaries with myself. I'm challenging my audience in a way that I do my one-to-one clients. So sometimes when I'm working with somebody one-on-one, they'll say something and I, as their coach, will challenge them in a loving, kind way, of course, not in a fisticuffs way. But sometimes they'll say something, for example, like, well, of course, like that would never happen to me. And my role as a coach is to challenge that and say, why not? What evidence do you have for this? And really going under the hood of what's going on there. So I do feel like everything has stepped up over this last year, but also there has still been that thing that used to happen 5 years ago or 6 years ago, whenever I started, of sometimes I would publish something and I'd have to slightly look away because it feels really scary to put something out there in the world. So I guess what I want to ask you is, where are you up to in terms of your content? Because if you can nail this, if you can find consistency, if you can find your own flavor and your own timetable and schedule that's going to work, it's really going to help people to get to know you. And this has been one of the biggest things from the podcast, is especially when I get clients from people getting to know me on the podcast and I meet them in person, people really have an affinity with me. They feel like they know me, and that's really lovely. Of course it is, but I really want to get to know you as well. And sometimes I see posts that are maybe 60% there or 70% there of what somebody actually wants to say. And I'm always challenging my clients just to go that extra mile, to not be vanilla, and to put themselves slightly in that risky position of, what if I actually said what it is that I want to say and really show up as who I am? So I want to give you some takeaways. As always, you know that I love these. So I've got 10 points that you can work through. So grab a piece of paper and a pen if you haven't done already, and make a note of a few things. So number one is you have to start. I know there can be this temptation that I'll start next year, or I feel like I have to batch 10 blog posts before you even release one. But it is one of those things that you only get to know what it feels like, what works, what people connect with by doing it, by actually standing up and moving and going into that position of momentum. So many people get in touch with me and they're like, I really want to write a blog and I really want to start a podcast too, but how do I start? There's kind of no simple formula. All you have to do is start and really allow yourself to aim for the easy wins. So don't necessarily think, right, I've got to record a podcast and it's got to be 2 hours long of me just speaking. It doesn't. It could just be 5 minutes, sharing 5 tips, whatever it might be. Give yourself the opportunity to start and make it easy for yourself. 2, give yourself permission and time to figure it out. There can be that temptation to write 2 lines if you're doing it on a piece of paper, and then to suddenly go, well, that's crap, that's rubbish, and then scrunch up the ball of paper and throw it across the room. You're maybe not going to write your best work or create your best work immediately, but you have to start. But you have to be kind to yourself to figure it out, because you will, and you will find your flow. And I'm sure there'll become a point where in 5 years' time, I'll look back on things and go, oh, blimey, and it'll make me cringe a little bit and like, why did I think that I needed to write that? But just give yourself permission. Be kind. This is very important. 3, why are you doing what you're doing? So I have, for example, on my wall, a few notes that really help me tune into my podcast. So I want it to be inspiring, inclusive, warm, valuable, and approachable. They're just a few words that I can see right in front of me. And having a benchmark of knowing what it is that I'm creating helps me to make a decision. So sometimes I have content ideas for these mini episodes, and I have to stop myself because I think, no, it's not quite there, or it's a bit of an oddball, or perhaps there's going to be another formula for that. Or I think, no, there's going to be a better outlet or way of sharing that. So really understanding why you're doing what you're doing will help you be very discerning and help you to say what it is that you want to say. 4, think about the different categories. So definitely when I tag all of my posts, I have lots of different things. So certainly in the podcast. So in terms of the podcast, if you head over to my Instagram at Nicky Raby, you'll see along my highlights reel that I've categorized some of my podcasts. So I've got mindset ones, I've got social media ones, I've got branding ones, I've got ones with founders. Really think about the categories or the topics that you want to create around. And this will hopefully give you lots of confidence, because you'll realize that there are lots of things that you can talk about and you're probably never going to get stuck for content. 5, consistency. If you can be consistent, it's really going to help you. So with the podcast, I made a decision that I was going to do 2 episodes a week on a Monday and Thursday. And then about 13 weeks ago, I started doing these mini episodes on a Wednesday as well. Now, for the most part, on a Monday, Wednesday and Thursday, the podcast goes up early doors. Occasionally there are times where it does go up late, or I have to make a change at last minute. But on the whole, my subscribers to the podcast, thank you if you are one. If you're not, go ahead and subscribe. Know that they're going to get a notification on those days. And that has been something really great in terms of growing the podcast. Now, your consistency might be once a week, once a month, twice a fortnight, whatever it might be. But see if you can stick to a vague schedule. It may also be that on Instagram on a Thursday, you talk about X, Y, and Z, or on a Monday, you do something else. Really think about how your audience can have that reliability with you. 6, share it. I know we're not supposed to talk about ourselves or say how wonderful we are, but unless you do, nobody's going to find you. And social media is wonderful now. You don't have to put an advert in a paper going, hey guys, I just wrote this thing. Feel free to share it and also ask other people to share it. On the whole, most of the people that I've interviewed on this have been so lovely and willing and gone above and beyond to sharing the podcast. For example, Erica Davis, who has a huge following, she kept the link up for a week and it was the only link on her bio. And I was so grateful for that because it really drove so much traffic. But if people are not necessarily willing to share it, or if, you know, when you tag somebody in Instagram and all they do is send a heart, ask them, say, can you add this to your story? Can you shout about this? Can you talk about it? And I think sometimes as well, people just need to be given that nudge. So 7, repurpose. When I create a podcast episode, I create it and it goes on iTunes. It also goes on YouTube. A little snip of it goes on Instagram in my feed. It goes in my stories. It goes on Instagram TV. It goes on Twitter. It goes on my blog. I'm really thinking about repurposing this. And certainly as well in the beginning, I realised that so many people didn't have Apple Podcasts and they were sort of saying, yeah, but I want to kind of listen to it as well. So YouTube has been really great. So sometimes there can be that temptation, well, like, oh, I better not shout about this episode anymore. But people want to consume the content where they want to consume it. So don't feel like you have to start from scratch every single time. Likewise, I did a talk for Digital Mums, which was a Facebook Live. So then I created a podcast off the back of that. I did a blog post. I wrote some other content. Then I pulled together the main points and I did a pitch for another talk. So try and create some sort of filing system where you can pull together things, because quite often, especially if you're pitching for free or if you're doing work for free, you want to pull on the resources that you already have rather than reinventing it every single time. 8, don't be afraid to share your stories, your experiences, your knowledge, and surprise people. Oh, I find social media so tedious sometimes. I feel like it's the same information being churned out in the same voice, in the same tone, and you can't really differentiate between one blogger or one influencer or one celebrity to another. One thing that I found is when I show up as me, and I'm not saying that like this is the right way or whatever, this is just something that I found and want to share. When I really show up and I share stories or experiences, that's when it connects. When I make a reference to something in my childhood, when I talk about, I don't know, a song that really moved me, that's when I get traction. That's when I get conversation, rather than just shoving up some old quote that somebody once said in the 1800s. Number 9, give people a call to action. Okay, so I heard this story from a coach once of this sense of always making sure that you offer dessert. So if you go around to somebody's house for dinner, you have the most spectacular meal, you have a great starter, maybe some bread, maybe a main meal, and then at the end of the main meal they go, great, okay, lovely, shall I get your coat? Do you want to go home? And you might be thinking, no, I want dessert. I want more of this. I want more food. So sometimes as well, I feel like that when I come across a video on YouTube or whatever, I want to be told to subscribe or to go to a certain playlist or a call to action or to download the thing. And so many people I see creating content and then leaving the viewer or the reader or the listener hanging. So make sure that you're giving a call to action of what do you want your person to do next. Maybe you want them to check out your services, and this isn't about sleazy selling or anything like that, but I want to share with you that you may be the person that other person has been waiting for the whole time. So make sure that you're giving a call to action at all times. And number 10, keep elevating what you do. So keep thinking about ways that you can make it better. Don't just get stuck in the same old routine. Always keep your eyes and ears open to technology that can help you, to looking at different ways that you can do this, and don't allow yourself to get too comfortable, because when you just churn out the same old thing, people can really feel it as well. So before I go, I want to tell you about something that I'm doing tomorrow. I'm doing a live workshop at 12 p.m. If you can't join me live, don't worry. There's a full recording and you'll get it immediately after your workshop. But I'm going to be talking about content and how you can create content so you can increase your sales. So gone are the days of the infomercial of like, hi, here's how you make $1 million. This is about how you can consciously bring people into your world so you have that moment. And frequently I do, where people go, oh, I'm so glad that I've just discovered you. Where have you been all my life? You've said this in a way and it just makes perfect sense to me, etc., etc. So really thinking about how you can create content that is going to convert. This is the key. Now, convert can mean different things. It can mean sales, it can mean money, it can mean customers, but also convert people so they come into your world. The amount of times where I've had customers that have finally come to the point where they work with me, and actually they've been following me for about 4 or 5 years, but now is the right time. So we're not necessarily thinking about how we convert people immediately and suddenly they just sign up for our 6-month program, but how we're building that level of intimacy and connection and somebody really getting to know you. So I'm going to leave all the information in the description box. Have a look. Please join us if you want to. I'm also doing another workshop next week about creating membership sites, passive income, all of that jazz. So have a look below. There's also a little cheeky discount if you buy both of them. And there's so much good stuff in there. There's some pre-work for you to get clear and you can send to me in advance so I know what it is that you need help with and all that good stuff. So I hope today has been useful. Let me know over on Instagram or email me hello@Nicky Raby and let me know what your takeaways are. Let me know what you're going to do next and how you're going to move forward in terms of your content. I would love to know. And as always, you can come and join the conversation at Nicky Raby across social media. So check out that link down below. If you're not subscribed to my weekly magazine, do so. All the details are in the description box. And I'll see you very soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening as always. If you do want to rate and review and subscribe over on iTunes or even share it with a friend, I would love it. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to find out more about me and how we can work together, please go to nickyraby.com or connect with me across social media at Nicky Raby. I'll see you soon. Bye.